Elena Marchetti walked into the big meeting room with heavy steps. Her black high heels clicked on the marble floor. She carried a thick folder full of papers and bad news. The Metropolitan Arts Center was in trouble. Big trouble. The meeting room was cold and quiet. 10 board members sat around a long wooden table. Their faces looked serious and worried. Elena knew what they wanted to talk about. Money. There was never enough money. "Good morning, everyone," Elena said. She tried to smile, but it felt fake. She had been the director of the Arts Center for 5 years. These meetings were getting harder every month. Mr. Harrison, the oldest board member, looked at her over his glasses. "Elena, we need to talk about the budget cuts. The city is reducing our funding by 30%. Elena felt her heart sink. 30%. That meant they would have to cancel shows, fire people, maybe even close some parts of the building. How are we supposed to run an arts center with less money?" asked Mrs. Chen, another board member. She looked angry and tired. Elena opened her folder. The numbers on the papers made her feel sick. "We could cancel the spring concert series," she said quietly. "That would save us $50,000. "What about the children's music program?" asked Mr. Harrison. "We might have to cut that too," Elena said. The words hurt to say. The children's program was her favorite part of the job. Every Saturday, kids came to learn piano and violin. Their happy faces made all the stress worth it. The room became very quiet. Elena could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Each second felt like an hour. "What about private donors?" asked Mrs. Chen. "Rich people who love music?" Elena shook her head. "I've asked everyone I know. They all say the same thing. The economy is bad. People are not giving money to the arts right now." Mr. Harrison sighed. "Maybe we should think about selling the building." "No," Elena said quickly. Too quickly. Everyone looked at her. "I mean, this building has been home to music for 50 years. We can't just give up." But Elena knew they were running out of choices. The Metropolitan Arts Center was a beautiful old building in the heart of the city. It had 2 concert halls, practice rooms, and offices. The main hall had a big stage and a beautiful grand piano. That piano was Elena's favorite thing in the whole building. The meeting went on for 2 hours. 2 long, painful hours. They talked about firing half the staff. They talked about selling instruments. They talked about closing the building 3 days a week. Elena felt like crying. She had worked so hard to make this place special. She had organized concerts that made people cry with happiness. She had helped young musicians start their careers. Now it was all falling apart. "We need something big," said Mr. Harrison. "Something that will bring people back. Something that will make donors excited about giving money." "Like what?" Elena asked. "A famous musician," said Mrs. Chen. "Someone who will fill all the seats." Elena laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. "Do you know how much famous musicians cost? We can't even pay our electric bill." The board members looked at each other. They all knew Elena was right. Famous musicians charged hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Arts Center could not afford that. "Maybe we could find someone new," suggested Mr. Harrison. "Someone young and talented, but not expensive yet." "Where?" Elena asked. "All the good young musicians go to New York or Los Angeles. They don't stay in small cities like ours." The meeting was almost over. Elena felt defeated. She had failed. The Arts Center would probably close by the end of the year. All those musicians would lose their jobs. All those children would lose their music lessons. Mrs. Chen started packing her papers. "Well, unless someone walks through that door right now and plays Mozart perfectly, I don't see how we can save this place." Elena felt frustrated. Very frustrated. All the stress from the past months came out at once. "You know what?" she said, her voice getting louder. "At this point, if someone could walk in here and play Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21 perfectly, I would marry them on the spot." Everyone stared at Elena. Then Mr. Harrison started laughing. "That's quite an offer, Elena." Elena's face turned red. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shout. I'm just so tired of all this." "It's okay," said Mrs. Chen. We're all frustrated. The board members started leaving one by one. They shook Elena's hand and said things like, "Hang in there and we'll figure something out." But Elena could see in their eyes that they had given up hope. Elena was the last person in the meeting room. She sat in her chair and looked at the papers spread across the table. Numbers, budgets, bills. All of it felt overwhelming. She could hear people moving around in the hallway outside. The cleaning crew was starting their evening work. Elena always stayed late, so she knew the cleaners well. They were quiet, hard-working people who kept the building beautiful. There was Maria, who cleaned the bathrooms and always hummed while she worked. There was James, who mopped the floors and knew the name of every security guard. And there was Marcus, who emptied the trash cans and never said much to anyone. Elena had seen Marcus many times, but they had never really talked. He was a tall man with dark hair and kind eyes. He moved quietly through the building, doing his job without bothering anyone. Elena sometimes wondered what his story was. Everyone who worked at the arts center loved music in some way. Even the security guards could tell you about their favorite composers, but Marcus seemed different. He never stopped to listen when musicians practiced. He never asked about the concerts. He just did his work and went home. Elena gathered her papers and put them back in the folder. Tomorrow she would have to start making the hard decisions. Which programs to cut first? Which people to let go? How to tell the community that their art center was dying? As she walked toward the door, she could hear the cleaning crew in the hallway. Someone was pushing a cart full of supplies. Someone else was talking quietly on a phone. Elena turned off the lights in the meeting room. The building felt different at night. During the day, it was full of music and voices and energy. At night, it was peaceful and calm. She walked down the hallway toward her office. She needed to get her purse and keys. Tomorrow would be another difficult day. But tonight, she just wanted to go home and forget about budgets and board meetings. Elena didn't know that someone had heard every word of her outburst in the meeting room, someone who had been quietly emptying trash cans outside the door. Someone who knew more about Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21 than anyone could imagine. Marcus Rivera had heard Elena's frustrated declaration, and for the first time in 15 years he was thinking about sitting down at a piano again. Marcus Rivera pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallway. The wheels made a soft squeaking sound on the shiny floor. It was almost 9 o'clock at night, and most people had gone home. This was when Marcus liked the arts center best. When it was quiet and peaceful. He had been working here for 3 years. 3 long years of emptying trash cans and cleaning windows. Most people didn't notice him. He was just the night janitor. The invisible man who made sure everything was clean. For the next day, Marcus didn't mind being invisible. It was easier that way. Easier than explaining who he used to be. Easier than talking about the dreams he had given up. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about what Elena had said in the meeting room. He had been emptying the trash can right outside the door when she shouted about Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21. Marcus knew that piece very well. Too well. It had been the last piece he ever performed in public. 15 years ago at his graduation concert from Juilliard School of Music in New York City. Marcus stopped pushing his cart and closed his eyes. He could still remember that night. The bright lights on the stage, the sound of people clapping, the feeling of his fingers dancing across the piano keys. He had been 22 years old and full of hope. Everyone said he would be famous someday. His teachers told him he had a gift. Music agents wanted to represent him. He had already been accepted to study with a famous piano teacher in Europe. Then everything changed. Marcus opened his eyes and started pushing his cart again. He didn't like to think about the past. It hurt too much. But Elena's words had brought back all those memories. He thought about his father, Roberto Rivera. His father had been a construction worker who loved music but never had the chance to learn an instrument. When Marcus showed talent as a child, Roberto worked extra jobs to pay for piano lessons. "Music is your gift, mijo," his father used to say. "Use it to make the world more beautiful." Roberto had been so proud when Marcus got into Juilliard. He told everyone in their neighborhood about his son. the pianist. He saved money for 2 years to buy a plane ticket to New York for Marcus's graduation concert. Marcus remembered seeing his father in the audience that night. Roberto was wearing his best suit and crying happy tears. After the concert, he hugged Marcus and said, "You did it, son. You really did it." 3 days later, Roberto had a heart attack at work. He died before the ambulance arrived. Marcus stopped at the door to the main concert hall. Through the glass, he could see the grand piano on the stage. It was a beautiful black Steinway, worth more than most people's houses. During the day, music students practiced on it. Professional musicians performed on it during concerts. But at night, it sat alone and silent. Marcus had never touched that piano. In 3 years of working here, he had cleaned around it, dusted near it, but never actually touched the keys. He was afraid of what might happen if he did. After his father died, everything fell apart quickly. The medical bills were huge. Roberto had some insurance, but not enough. The funeral costs were expensive too. Marcus's mother, Sophia, was devastated. She couldn't work because she was too sad and too sick with grief. Marcus's younger sister, Carmen, was only 16 then. She was smart and wanted to go to college, but the family needed money right away. Someone had to take care of their mother. Someone had to pay the bills. Marcus made the hardest decision of his life. He left Juilliard 3 credits short of graduation. He gave up his scholarship to study in Europe. He moved back home and got 3 jobs to support his family. That was 15 years ago. 15 years of working in restaurants, cleaning offices, and driving delivery trucks. 15 years of watching other musicians on TV and wondering what his life could have been. Marcus unlocked the door to the concert hall and wheeled his cart inside. The room was huge and empty. There were 500 red velvet seats facing the stage. During concerts, this room was full of people who loved music. Tonight, it was just Marcus and his memories. He started emptying the small trash cans between the rows of seats. Candy wrappers, empty water bottles, programs from last week's concert. The usual things people left behind. As he worked, Marcus thought about his family. His mother was 73 now and had diabetes. She needed expensive medicine every month. His sister Carmen was 31 and had 2 young children. She worked as a teacher, but teachers didn't make much money. Marcus still lived in the same small apartment where he grew up. He sent most of his money to help his mother and sister. He worked at the arts center from 6 p.m. to midnight. During the day, he worked at a grocery store. On weekends, he delivered food for a restaurant. He was always tired. His hands, which used to create beautiful music, were now rough and calloused from cleaning and lifting. Sometimes his back hurt from bending over trash cans all day. But Marcus never complained. His family needed him. That was more important than any dream. As he worked his way toward the stage, Marcus kept thinking about Elena's words. She had sounded so frustrated and sad. Marcus knew the arts center was having money problems. He heard people talking about it all the time. It made him sad too. This place was special. Even as a janitor, Marcus could feel the magic here. Young musicians came here to learn and grow. Families brought their children to concerts. Elderly people found joy in the music. If the arts center closed, all of that would be lost. Marcus finished emptying the trash cans and moved on to sweeping the aisles. As he worked, he got closer and closer to the stage, and closer to the piano. When he reached the front row, Marcus stopped. The piano was only 20 feet away now. Under the soft stage lights, it looked beautiful and mysterious. Marcus had not played piano in 15 years. Not once. After his father died, he couldn't bear to touch the keys. Music reminded him of everything he had lost, everything he would never have. But tonight, something felt different. Maybe it was Elena's joke about marrying someone who could play Mozart. Maybe it was the sadness in her voice when she talked about the arts center closing. Or maybe it was just time. Marcus left his broom and walked toward the stage. His heart was beating fast. His hands were shaking a little. He climbed the steps and stood next to the piano. The keys were covered with a soft cloth to protect them from dust. Marcus had placed that cloth there himself after the last concert. Now he slowly lifted it away. The keys were perfect. Black and white, arranged in the pattern Marcus knew better than his own name. 88 keys that could create infinite music. Marcus sat down on the piano bench. It felt strange and familiar at the same time, like coming home after a very long trip. He placed his hands on the keys but didn't press them yet. He just sat there, remembering what it felt like to be a musician, remembering what it felt like to have dreams. Outside, the city was busy with traffic and people going home from work. But inside the concert hall, everything was quiet and still. Marcus took a deep breath. Then, very quietly, he began to play. The first notes of Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21 filled the empty hall. The music was soft and gentle at first, like a whisper, but it was perfect. Every note was exactly where it should be. Marcus closed his eyes and let his fingers remember what they used to know. The music flowed out of him like water that had been dammed up for too long. 15 years of silence ended in that moment. He played softly because he was afraid someone might hear. But deep in his heart, Marcus hoped that maybe, somehow, his father was listening. Elena drove home slowly through the quiet city streets. The meeting had left her feeling empty and defeated. She kept thinking about the board members' worried faces and all those terrible numbers in her folder. 30% budget cuts. Half the staff would have to go. The children's music program would be canceled. Maybe the whole arts center would close by Christmas. Elena had worked so hard to build something beautiful. Now it was all falling apart, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She pulled into her driveway and sat in her car for a moment. Her house was dark and silent. Elena lived alone. She had never married, never had children. The art center was her life, her family, her everything. What would she do if it closed? Where would she go? At 45 years old, would anyone hire a former art center director in a small city? Elena went inside and made herself a cup of tea. She tried to watch television, but nothing could hold her attention. Her mind kept going back to the meeting room and that awful conversation about money. Around 10 o'clock, Elena realized she had left some important papers on her desk, the insurance documents that she needed to review tonight. She would have to go back to the art center to get them. Elena didn't want to go back. She was tired and sad and just wanted to forget about work for one evening. But the papers were important. The insurance company needed them first thing in the morning. She got back in her car and drove through the empty streets. Most of the city was asleep now. Street lights cast long shadows on the sidewalks. A few restaurants were still open, but everything else was dark and quiet. The arts center looked different at night. During the day, it was busy and full of life. At night, it seemed lonely and forgotten. Elena parked in her usual spot and used her key to enter through the side door. The hallways were dimly lit by security lights. Elena's footsteps echoed as she walked toward her office. Somewhere in the building, she could hear the cleaning crew working. A vacuum cleaner hummed in the distance. Elena reached her office and found the insurance papers on her desk. She was about to leave when she heard something that made her stop. Music, piano music. It was very faint, but Elena knew every sound in this building. Someone was playing the piano in the main concert hall, but that was impossible. The hall was supposed to be empty. The cleaning crew didn't have access to the stage. Elena walked quietly toward the concert hall. As she got closer, the music got clearer. Someone was playing Mozart. Piano Concerto No. 21. The same piece she had mentioned in her frustrated outburst that afternoon. Elena's heart started beating faster. Who could be playing at this hour? Had someone broken into the building? Was it one of the music students who had somehow gotten in after hours? She reached the door to the concert hall and looked through the glass window. The stage lights were on low, creating a soft, warm glow. And there, at the grand piano, sat a figure she recognized but couldn't quite believe. Marcus, the night janitor, the quiet man who emptied trash cans and never spoke to anyone. He was sitting at the piano, playing Mozart with incredible skill and beauty. Elena stood frozen at the door. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The music was absolutely perfect. Every note was precise and emotional. This wasn't someone who had learned piano as a hobby. This was a real musician, a gifted, trained, professional musician. But that was impossible. Marcus was a janitor. He emptied trash cans and mopped floors. He wore a simple uniform and carried cleaning supplies. Elena had seen him hundreds of times over the past 3 years, and he had never shown any interest in music. The music continued, flowing through the empty concert hall like water through a canyon. Marcus played with his eyes closed, his body swaying slightly with the rhythm. His hands moved across the keys with perfect grace and control. Elena had heard this concerto performed by famous pianists. She had attended concerts at Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center. She knew what great piano playing sounded like. And this was great piano playing. This was extraordinary. Elena opened the door very quietly and stepped inside the concert hall. She didn't want to disturb Marcus or make him stop playing. She just wanted to get closer to hear the music better, to understand what was happening. She walked slowly down the aisle between the red velvet seats. Her high heels were silent on the carpeted floor. The music surrounded her, filled her, lifted her up. For the first time all day, Elena felt something other than despair. This was why she had dedicated her life to the arts. This was the magic that happened when a gifted musician touched the keys of a piano. This was what they were fighting to save. Marcus played the slow, beautiful second movement of the concerto. His touch was gentle and expressive. Elena could hear years of training in every phrase, every dynamic change, every carefully shaped melody line. Where had this come from? How long had Marcus been hiding this incredible talent? Why was he working as a janitor when he could clearly be performing on stages around the world? Elena moved closer to the stage. She was only 10 rows away now, close enough to see the concentration on Marcus's face, the way his fingers curved perfectly over the keys, the slight movement of his shoulders as he breathed with the music. Pshat, second movement ended, and Marcus moved into the final movement. This part was faster, more energetic, full of joy and celebration. Marcus's hands flew across the keys with amazing speed and accuracy. The music bounced and danced through the concert hall. Elena felt tears coming to her eyes. This was the most beautiful piano playing she had ever heard in this hall. Better than the visiting artists who charged thousands of dollars. Better than the young competition winners who came to perform. This was music making at its highest level. How was this possible? How could someone with this much talent be working as a night janitor? What was his story? What had brought him to this building, to this job, to this moment? The final movement, built to its exciting conclusion. Marcus played with power and passion, his whole body involved in creating the music. The last notes rang out through the hall, echoing off the walls and ceiling, before slowly fading into silence. For a moment, neither Elena nor Marcus moved. The silence after such beautiful music felt sacred and important. Elena could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Then, without thinking, Elena began to clap. The sound of applause in the empty hall was startling and loud. Marcus's eyes flew open, and he spun around on the piano bench. When he saw Elena standing in the aisle, his face went white with shock and fear. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quickly, standing up from the bench. "I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't be here. I was finishing my cleaning and He looked terrified, like someone who had been caught stealing. His hands were shaking, and he kept glancing toward the exit as if he wanted to run away. "Don't apologize," Elena said, walking closer to the stage. That was incredible. That was the most beautiful playing I've ever heard in this hall." Marcus looked confused and scared. "Please don't fire me," he said. "I need this job. My family needs this job. I promise it won't happen again." Elena reached the front of the stage and looked up at Marcus. He was tall and thin, with kind eyes that now looked worried and sad. She had seen him so many times, but she had never really looked at him before, never seen him as anything more than part of the building's background. I'm not going to fire you, Elena said gently, but I need to know who you are. That wasn't lucky guessing. That wasn't someone who plays piano as a hobby. You're a real musician, a trained professional musician. Marcus looked down at his hands, the same hands that had just created such beautiful music. Now they were just the rough, calloused hands of a working man. I used to be, he said quietly. A long time ago. What happened? Elena asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Elena could see him struggling with whether to tell her the truth or make up some simple explanation. Finally, he looked up at her. It's a long story, he said. I have time, Elena said. And after what I just heard, I think you owe me an explanation. Marcus sat back down on the piano bench. He looked small and vulnerable under the stage lights. Elena could see that whatever had brought him here, whatever had made him give up music, it had been painful and difficult. My name is Marcus Rivera, he said. 15 years ago, I was a student at Juilliard School of Music in New York. I was supposed to graduate and become a concert pianist. Elena felt her breath catch in her throat. Juilliard, one of the most famous music schools in the world. Only the most talented musicians were accepted there. What happened? She asked again, more gently this time. Marcus looked at the piano keys, then back at Elena. Life happened, he said. My father died. My family needed me. So I gave up music and came home. The simple words carried 15 years of pain and sacrifice. Elena could hear it in his voice, see it in his eyes. This man had given up his dreams to take care of his family, and he had been carrying that loss alone for 15 years. And you've been working here for 3 years, Elena said. Listening to music every day but never playing. Until tonight, Marcus said. I heard what you said in the meeting today about Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. This piece, it was the last thing I ever performed in public. Elena felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. This man, this incredibly gifted musician. Elena stared at Marcus for a long moment. The concert hall felt heavy with unspoken questions and 15 years of hidden truth. She could see that Marcus was still nervous, still afraid he might lose his job. But Elena's mind was racing with possibilities. Sit down, Elena said, gesturing to one of the chairs in the front row. Please, we need to talk. Marcus climbed down from the stage slowly. He looked like a man walking to his own trial. Elena sat in the chair next to him, turning to face him directly. Tell me everything, she said, from the beginning. Marcus took a deep breath. His hands were still shaking slightly from nerves and from playing the piano after so many years. I grew up in a small town about 2 hours from here, he began. My father worked construction. My mother cleaned houses. We didn't have much money, but my parents loved music. Elena listened carefully. She could hear the pain in Marcus's voice, but also the love when he talked about his parents. When I was 5, I saw a piano in a church, Marcus continued. I walked up to it and started playing. I don't know how I knew which keys to press, but I could play simple songs by ear. The church pastor told my parents I had a gift. So they got you lessons? Elena asked. Marcus nodded. My father took a second job to pay for piano lessons, then a third job when I got older and needed a better teacher. He would drive me 2 hours each way to study with a real piano teacher in the city. Elena felt her heart tighten. She could picture a young Marcus and his hard-working father making those long drives, sacrificing everything for music. I was good, Marcus said simply, really good. By the time I was in high school, I was winning competitions. Music teachers said I had the kind of talent that comes along once in a generation. So you applied to music school? Juilliard offered me a full scholarship, Marcus said. My parents cried when we got the letter. My father said it was the happiest day of his life. Elena could imagine the scene. A working-class family celebrating their son's acceptance to one of the most prestigious music schools in the world. What was Juilliard like? Elena asked. For the first time, Marcus smiled a little. Amazing, scary. Everyone there was incredibly talented. I had to work harder than I had ever worked in my life, but I loved it. I was studying with the best piano teachers in the world. I was learning pieces I had only dreamed of playing. And, you were successful there? I did well, Marcus said modestly. I won some student competitions. I gave recitals. My teacher said I had a future as a concert pianist. They were already talking about which managers I should work with after graduation. Elena could see the young man Marcus had been. Talented, hardworking, full of dreams and potential. It made what happened next even more tragic. Tell me about your father, Elena said gently. Marcus's face changed. The small smile disappeared, replaced by an expression of deep sadness. Roberto Rivera, Marcus said. He was the strongest man I knew. He worked 12 hours a day building houses and office buildings. His hands were always cut up and calloused, but he never complained. He said work was a blessing, and he was grateful for it. He must have been so proud of you. He was, Marcus said. He told everyone about his son at Juilliard. The guys he worked with got tired of hearing about it. But he couldn't help himself. He had never finished high school, and here was his son studying at the most famous music school in America. Elena felt tears starting in her eyes. She could see where this story was going, and she dreaded hearing the rest. The spring of my senior year, I had my graduation recital, Marcus continued. It was a big deal. Music agents and managers would be there. My teacher said it could launch my career. I was going to play 5 pieces, including Mozart's piano, Concerto No. 21, the same piece you played tonight. The same piece, Marcus confirmed. My father saved money for 2 years to buy a plane ticket to New York. He had never been on a plane before. He was so excited and so nervous. Marcus paused and looked around the empty concert hall. Elena could see him remembering that night 15 years ago. The recital went perfectly, Marcus said. I played better than I had ever played in my life. When I finished the Mozart, the whole audience stood up and clapped for 5 minutes. I looked out and saw my father in the 3rd row, crying and clapping, and beaming with pride. It sounds like a perfect night. It was, Marcus said. After the concert, my father came backstage and hugged me. He said, "You did it, mijo. You really did it. You're going to be famous, and you're going to make beautiful music for the whole world." Elena waited. She could see that the hardest part of the story was coming. 3 days later, I was in my dorm room packing for summer break, Marcus said. I was going to spend the summer in Europe, studying with a famous teacher in Vienna. Everything was planned. My whole future was mapped out. Marcus stopped talking. He stared at his hands for a long moment. The phone rang. He finally continued. It was my sister Carmen. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She said my father had collapsed at work. Heart attack. He died before the ambulance got there. Elena felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. Oh, Marcus, I'm so sorry. Oh. He was only 52, Marcus said. Healthy and strong. The doctor said it was probably from years of stress and working too hard. All those extra jobs he took to pay for my music lessons. The guilt in Marcus's voice was heartbreaking. Elena could see that he blamed himself for his father's death even though it wasn't his fault. What happened next? Elena asked. Everything fell apart quickly, Marcus said. My father had some life insurance, but not much. There were medical bills, from the ambulance and the hospital, funeral costs, and my mother completely collapsed. She couldn't work, couldn't function. She just sat in her room and cried all day. And your sister? Carmen was only 16 and still in high school. Smart kid. She wanted to go to college and become a teacher. But suddenly she was trying to take care of our mother and figure out how to pay the bills. Elena could picture it. A family destroyed by grief and financial pressure with no one to help them. So you came home, Elena said. I had 3 credits left to graduate from Juilliard, Marcus said. 3 credits. But my family needed me right away. Carmen called me crying every night. The mortgage was 3 months behind. The electric company was going to shut off the power. My mother wasn't eating. Did you try to finish school and help? From New York? Marcus shook his head. There was no money for me to stay in school even for 3 more months, and my family needed someone there with them. Carmen was just a kid trying to hold everything together. So you left Juilliard? I packed my things and drove home, Marcus said. I got 3 jobs immediately. I worked at a restaurant during the day, cleaned offices at night, and delivered groceries on weekends. I sent most of my money to help with the house payments and my mother's medical bills. Elena felt overwhelmed by the sacrifice Marcus had made to give up everything he had worked for, everything he was meant to be to take care of his family. And you never went back to music? I couldn't, Marcus said. Every time I tried to play piano, I thought about my father, about how he had worked so hard to give me that opportunity, about how I had failed to use it. You didn't fail, Elena said firmly. You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. I told myself I would go back someday, Marcus said. When my mother was better. When Carmen finished school. When the bills were paid off. But years went by and there was always another crisis. Another reason to keep working instead of playing music. And your family now? My mother is 73 and has diabetes. She needs expensive medicine every month. Carmen became a teacher like she wanted, but she has 2 young children and doesn't make much money. I still help them both. Elena understood now why Marcus worked 3 jobs, why he lived so simply, why he had never tried to pursue music again. For 15 years, I convinced myself that I had made the right choice, Marcus said. That taking care of my family was more important than my dreams, and maybe it was. But tonight, when I heard you talking about that Mozart piece, something broke open inside me. What do you mean? I realized that I had been punishing myself, Marcus said. I stopped playing music because I felt guilty about my father's death, guilty about leaving school, guilty about not becoming the pianist he dreamed I would be. Elena could see tears in Marcus's eyes now. But tonight, when I played that piece, I felt close to my father again. Marcus said. I remembered why he worked so hard for my music education. He didn't want me to be a construction worker like him. He wanted me to have a better life, a life filled with beauty and art. And instead, you've been emptying trash cans. For 3 years, Marcus said. Walking through this building every night, listening to other people make music, telling myself that I didn't deserve to be up on that stage. Elena sat quietly for a moment, trying to process everything Marcus had told her. This man had more talent in his little finger than most professional musicians she knew. And he had been wasting it, hiding it, burying it under years of guilt and sacrifice. Marcus, Elena said finally, what you just played tonight was extraordinary. You have a gift that most people can only dream of. And you've been hiding it for 15 years. I'm not hiding it, Marcus said. I gave it up. There's a difference. Is there? Elena asked. Marcus stared at Elena with confusion and disbelief. What are you talking about? I told you I gave up music 15 years ago. I'm a janitor now. I clean buildings and stock shelves. I'm not a musician anymore. Elena leaned forward in her chair. Her mind was working fast, putting together pieces of an impossible plan. But you could be again. What I heard tonight proves that. You don't understand, Marcus said, shaking his head. I can't just go back to being a pianist. I have responsibilities, bills to pay. People depending on me. I can't chase dreams anymore. Elena stood up and started pacing in front of the stage. The wheels in her mind were turning rapidly. Marcus, this afternoon I was in a meeting where we talked about closing this art center. We're running out of money. We need something big to save this place. Marcus looked confused. What does that have to do with me? Everything, Elena said, stopping to face him. We need a star, someone who can bring people back to this hall, someone who can make donors excited about giving money again. But we can't afford to hire a famous musician. So hire a local musician, Marcus suggested. There are lots of talented people in this city. Not like you, Elena said firmly. Marcus, what you played tonight was professional level, concert hall level. I've heard musicians charge $50,000 who don't play as well as you do. Marcus laughed, but it was a bitter sound. That's nice of you to say, but you heard me play one piece in an empty hall. That's not the same as performing for an audience, isn't it? Elena challenged. Music is music, whether there's one person listening or 1,000. Marcus stood up and walked to the edge of the stage. He looked out at the empty red seats. You have no idea how terrifying it is to perform in front of people. The lights, the pressure, everyone watching and judging. I haven't done that in 15 years. But you could do it again. Why would I want to? Marcus asked. I have a life now. It's not glamorous, but it's stable. My family depends on my income from these jobs. Elena took a deep breath. What she was about to propose was crazy, but it might be the only way to save the art center, and it might be the only way to give Marcus back the life he was meant to have. What if I could offer you something better? Elena said. What if performing could actually help your family more than cleaning buildings? Marcus turned to look at her. What are you talking about? Elena climbed up onto the stage and stood next to Marcus. From here she could see the whole concert hall, 500 empty seats that could be filled with people hungry for beautiful music. I want you to give a concert, Elena said. Here, in this hall, a comeback performance, the return of Marcus Rivera, former Juilliard student and gifted pianist. Marcus's face went white. Are you crazy? I can't give a concert. I haven't performed in public in 15 years. I don't even own a suit anymore. We can figure out the details, Elena said. The important thing is the music, and you've just proven you still have that. But why? Marcus asked. Why would you want me to perform? You barely know me. Elena looked around the beautiful concert hall that might have to close forever. Because this place is dying, Marcus. We're going to have to fire half our staff and cancel most of our programs, unless we can do something dramatic to bring people back and attract new donors. And you think one concert by an unknown janitor is going to save this place? Not just any janitor, Elena said. A janitor with an incredible story. Think about it, Marcus. Local man gives up his dreams to care for his family, works 3 jobs for 15 years, then returns to the stage to help save the arts center where he works. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Elena could see him thinking, wrestling with the idea. People love stories like that, Elena continued. Stories about real people overcoming hardship. Stories about talent and sacrifice and second chances. The newspapers would love it, the donors would love it. And what if I'm terrible? Marcus asked. What if I get up there and freeze? What if I can't remember how to perform for an audience? Then, we'll deal with it, Elena said. But I don't think that will happen. What I heard tonight was the playing of someone who was born to be on stage. Marcus walked to the piano and touched the keys gently. I don't know, Elena. It sounds too risky, too crazy. Everything worth doing is risky, Elena said. Your father took a risk when he spent all that money on your music education. You took a risk when you auditioned for Juilliard. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. Marcus looked up at her. What exactly are you proposing? Elena felt her heart beating faster. This was the moment when her crazy plan would either sound brilliant or completely insane. I'm proposing that we plan a special concert, Elena said. We'll call it something like Dreams Deferred or Second Chances. You'll perform a full recital program. We'll invite the community, the media, potential donors. How is that going to help you raise money? Because we'll sell it as a benefit concert, Elena explained. All proceeds go to save the arts center. But more than that, it will show people what this place is about. It will remind them why the arts matter. Marcus sat down on the piano bench. He looked overwhelmed. And what do I get out of this? Besides the terror of performing in public again? Elena sat down next to him on the bench. You get your life back, Marcus. Your real life. The life your father dreamed of for you. I told you, I can't abandon my family responsibilities. You won't have to, Elena said. If this concert is successful, if it helps save the arts center, I'll hire you as our artist in residence. It would be a real job with a real salary, better pay than you make from your 3 jobs combined. Marcus stared at her in shock. You would do that? In a heartbeat, Elena said. Marcus, talented musicians are what make places like this special. You wouldn't just be an employee. You'd be the heart of our music program. But I don't have a music degree. I never finished Juilliard. Talent doesn't need a diploma, Elena said. What you have is more valuable than any piece of paper. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Elena could see him struggling with 15 years of buried dreams and practical fears. What if the concert fails? Marcus asked finally. What if nobody comes? What if I embarrass myself and nothing changes? Then we'll be exactly where we are now, Elena said. The Arts Center will still be in trouble and you'll still be working 3 jobs. But at least we'll have tried. And if it succeeds? Elena smiled. If it succeeds, we both get what we want. I save the Arts Center, and you get your music back. Marcus looked out at the empty concert hall again. Elena could see him imagining it filled with people, imagining himself performing for an audience again. How long would I have to prepare? Marcus asked. Elena's heart jumped. He was actually considering it. How long do you think you need? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. I'm out of practice. My technique isn't what it used to be. I'd need to relearn pieces, build up my stamina. What if we said 6 weeks, Elena suggested. That gives us time to plan and promote the concert and gives you time to get ready. Marcus laughed nervously. 6 weeks to prepare for the most important performance of my life. No pressure. Marcus, Elena said seriously. I know this is scary. I know it feels impossible. But I heard what you can do tonight. You have something special, something the world needs to hear. I'm not the same person I was at Juilliard, Marcus said. I'm older, more tired. My hands are rougher from manual labor. Maybe that's better, Elena said. Maybe you have something to say with your music, now that you didn't have when you were 22. Maybe all that experience, all that hardship has given you a deeper understanding of what music can mean. Marcus touched the piano keys again. Very softly, he played a few notes of the Mozart piece from earlier. My father used to say that music was a gift, Marcus said quietly. He said it was meant to be shared, not kept hidden. He was right. But what if I've lost the gift? What if 15 years of not playing has damaged something that can't be repaired? Elena thought about the beautiful music she had heard earlier. Marcus, gifts like yours don't disappear. They might get buried under years of other concerns, but they don't disappear. Tonight proved that. Marcus was quiet again. Elena could see the war going on inside him between hope and fear, between dreams and practical concerns. If I say yes, Marcus said slowly, if I agree to this crazy plan, what happens to my other jobs? I can't afford to lose that income while I'm preparing. We'll work something out, Elena said. Maybe you could cut back your hours instead of quitting completely. The Arts Center could pay you a small fee for preparation time. And if the concert is a disaster, then you go back to your regular jobs and I probably get fired for wasting the Arts Center's money on a crazy scheme. Marcus looked at Elena with surprise. You'd risk your job for this? I'm probably going to lose my job anyway if we can't save this place, Elena said. At least this way, I'm going down fighting. They sat together on the piano bench in the quiet concert hall. The stage lights cast long shadows across the empty seats. Somewhere in the building, a clock chimed midnight. Marcus, Elena said softly. Your father worked all those extra jobs because he believed in your talent. He sacrificed everything because he wanted you to share your gift with the world. Maybe this is your chance to honor that sacrifice. Marcus closed his eyes. Elena could see tears on his cheeks. The next morning, Elena arrived at the Arts Center earlier than usual. She had barely slept, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. Everything felt different now. The building that had seemed doomed yesterday now felt full of potential. She went straight to the main concert hall and found Marcus already there, sitting at the piano. He was wearing his janitor uniform and looked like he hadn't slept either. How long have you been here? Elena asked. Since 5 a.m., Marcus said. I couldn't sleep, so I came in early to practice before my day job starts. Elena noticed sheet music spread across the piano. What are you working on? I'm trying to remember pieces I used to know, Marcus said. It's frustrating. My fingers remember some things, but my mind is fuzzy on the details. Elena sat down in the front row. Play something for me. Marcus hesitated. It's not ready. I'm making mistakes. I don't care about mistakes. I want to hear you play. Marcus began a Chopin piece. Elena could hear that he was rusty, but the music was still beautiful. His touch was gentle and expressive, even when he stumbled over difficult passages. When he finished, Marcus shook his head. "See? I told you I was out of practice." "Marcus, that was lovely," Elena said. "Yes, you need work, but the talent is still there. The musical instinct is still there." Over the next few days, Elena worked on two fronts. During the day, she made phone calls and sent emails to promote the concert. At night, she stayed late to listen to Marcus practice and offer encouragement. The board meeting that Thursday was tense. Elena had to tell them about her plan. "You want to feature our janitor in a benefit concert?" Mr. Harrison asked, looking skeptical. "Marcus Rivera is not just a janitor," Elena said firmly. "He's a classically trained pianist who studied at Juilliard. If he's so talented, why is he cleaning our building?" Mrs. Chen asked. Elena explained Marcus's story briefly, focusing on his sacrifice for his family and his incredible natural ability. "This sounds very risky," Mr. Harrison said. "What if he fails? What if nobody comes to the concert?" "Then we're no worse off than we are now," Elena said. "But if it succeeds, it could be exactly what we need to save this place." After much discussion, the board agreed to give Elena 6 weeks to organize the concert. If it failed, they would have to start the process of closing the Arts Center. Meanwhile, Marcus was struggling with his preparation. 15 years away from serious piano practice had taken a toll. His fingers were stiff, his stamina was low, and his confidence was shattered. "I can't do this," he told Elena one evening after a particularly frustrating practice session. "I sound like a beginner. I'm forgetting pieces I used to know by heart." "You've been away from the piano for 15 years, Elena said. "Of course, it's going to take time to get back in shape. Be patient with yourself." "We don't have time for patience," Marcus said. "The concert is in 5 weeks, and I can barely get through a simple Chopin piece without making mistakes." Elena could see that Marcus was getting discouraged. She needed to find a way to help him regain his confidence. "Marcus, what was your best piece at Juilliard? The one you felt most comfortable with?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Probably Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. I performed it with the school orchestra my junior year." "Then that's what you should perform at the concert." Marcus stared at her. "Are you crazy? That's one of the most difficult pieces in the piano repertoire. I can't perform a concerto without an orchestra." "Who says you need an orchestra?" Elena asked. "You could perform the solo piano version, or we could arrange for a small ensemble." "Elena, be realistic. I'm struggling with simple pieces. I can't tackle a Rachmaninoff concerto in 5 weeks." But Elena had an idea. "What if I found you some help? A coach who could work with you?" The next day, Elena made a phone call to Dr. Sarah Kim, a piano professor at the nearby university. Dr. Kim had performed professionally before becoming a teacher, and Elena hoped she might be willing to help. "You want me to coach a janitor for a benefit concert?" Dr. Kim asked when Elena explained the situation. "I want you to coach a former Juilliard student who happens to work as a janitor," Elena corrected. "Would you be willing to meet with him?" Dr. Kim agreed to listen to Marcus play. When she arrived at the Art Center that evening, Marcus was nervous and apologetic. "I know I'm not at professional level right now," he said. "I'm just trying to get back into shape." "Play something for me," Dr. Kim said simply. Marcus played the Mozart piece that had started everything. Dr. Kim listened carefully, her face revealing nothing. When he finished, Dr. Kim was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Who was your teacher at Juilliard?" "Professor Williams," Marcus said. "I know Robert Williams. He only accepts students with exceptional talent." Dr. Kim looked at Marcus with new respect. "You have good instincts, even after 15 years away. But you need intensive work on technique and stamina." "Will you help him?" Elena asked. Dr. Kim nodded. "I'll work with you 3 times a week for the next 5 weeks. But I warn you, it's going to be hard work. You'll need to practice at least 4 hours a day." Marcus looked panicked. "I can't practice 4 hours a day. I have 3 jobs." Elena had been thinking about this problem. What if you quit the grocery store job? I can arrange for the arts center to pay you a small salary for preparation time. That's not enough money to live on, Marcus said. It's enough to get by for 5 weeks, Elena said. And if the concert is successful, you'll have a full-time job here. Marcus was torn. Giving up one of his jobs felt risky, but he knew he couldn't prepare properly while working 60 hours a week. Okay, he said finally. I'll quit the grocery store, but I'm keeping the delivery job on weekends. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus threw himself into preparation with intense focus. He practiced from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m., then went to his delivery job, then returned to practice from 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. Dr. Kim worked with him on technique, helping him rebuild the finger strength and coordination he had lost. She also helped him choose pieces for the concert program. We'll start with something accessible, Dr. Kim suggested. Maybe a Bach prelude to warm up the audience, then a Chopin piece to show your lyrical side. And we'll end with part of that Rachmaninoff concerto you mentioned. Just part of it? Marcus asked. The first movement, Dr. Kim said. It's dramatic and exciting, but not so long that you'll tire out. Elena worked on promotion and logistics. She contacted local newspapers and radio stations telling them about Marcus's story. She reached out to potential sponsors and donors. She arranged for programs to be printed and tickets to be sold. The response was better than she had hoped. The local newspaper wanted to do a feature story. A classical music radio station offered to record the concert for broadcast. Several wealthy donors expressed interest in attending. But Marcus was still struggling. Some days he played beautifully, and Elena felt confident about the concert. Other days he was tired and frustrated, making mistakes and doubting himself. I don't know if I can do this, he told Elena one evening after a particularly difficult practice session. Maybe we should cancel. Marcus, you've come so far in just 3 weeks, Elena said. Dr. Kim says your playing is improving dramatically. But what if I freeze up during the concert? What if I forget everything? Elena sat down next to him on the piano bench. Do you remember why you're doing this? To save the arts center, Marcus said. No, Elena said. That's why I'm doing this. You're doing this for your father, for the man who worked 3 jobs so you could study music, for the dream he had of you sharing your gift with the world. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Sometimes I think I can feel him watching me practice, he said softly. I think he is watching, Elena said, and I think he's proud of what you're doing. As the concert date approached, Elena noticed changes in Marcus beyond just his piano playing. He stood straighter. He spoke with more confidence. The shy, invisible janitor was being replaced by someone who remembered what it felt like to be an artist. One evening, Elena stayed late to listen to Marcus run through his complete concert program. When he finished, she realized that something magical had happened. Marcus wasn't just playing the notes correctly anymore. He was making music, real, emotional, powerful music that filled the concert hall with beauty and meaning. Marcus, Elena said, that was incredible. You're ready. Marcus looked surprised. Really? You think so? I know so, Elena said. In fact, I think you're going to surprise yourself next week. As they turned off the stage lights and locked up the concert hall, both Elena and Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and terror. In 1 week, this quiet space would be filled with people. Marcus would walk out on that stage and either fulfill his father's dream or face his worst nightmare. But tonight, for the first time since they had started this journey, both of them believed that dreams might be stronger than nightmares. The next morning, Elena found a surprise waiting on her desk. It was a handwritten note from Marcus. Elena, it read, thank you for seeing something in me that I had forgotten was there. Whatever happens next week, you have already given me back something I thought was lost forever. You have given me back myself. Marcus. Elena smiled and put the note in her desk drawer. Next to it, she placed a copy of the concert program with Marcus's name printed at the top in elegant letters. Marcus Rivera, piano recital, dreams deferred. The day of the concert arrived gray and rainy. Marcus woke up at 5 in the morning with his heart pounding. He had barely slept, tossing and turning as his mind ran through every piece he would perform, every possible thing that could go wrong. He made coffee with shaking hands and sat at his small kitchen table. In 12 hours, he would be on stage in front of 300 people. The concert hall was sold out. The local newspaper had run a feature story about him. The radio station would be recording everything. Marcus tried to eat breakfast, but his stomach was too nervous. He kept thinking about all the important people who would be in the audience. Wealthy donors who might save the arts center. Music critics who could make or break his reputation. Dr. Kim would be there watching to see if her weeks of coaching had paid off. Most importantly, Elena would be there. Elena, who had believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. Who had risked her job and reputation on this crazy idea. If he failed tonight, he would be letting her down along with everyone else. At 8 in the morning, Marcus drove to the arts center for one final practice session. The building felt different today. There was excitement in the air. Staff members were decorating the lobby and setting up for the reception after the concert. Marcus went to the concert hall and sat at the piano. His hands felt stiff and cold. He started with simple scales to warm up, but even those felt awkward and uncertain. This was a mistake, he whispered to himself. I'm not ready for this. Elena arrived an hour later and found Marcus at the piano, looking pale and worried. How are you feeling? She asked. Terrified, Marcus said honestly. I keep making stupid mistakes. What if I do that tonight? Everyone makes mistakes, Elena said. Even famous pianists make mistakes. The audience won't notice small errors if you play with feeling and confidence. Easy for you to say, Marcus replied. You're not the one who has to get up there and perform. Elena sat down in the front row. Marcus, play the Mozart piece for me, the one I heard that first night. Marcus started to play but stopped after just a few measures. I can't concentrate. My mind is jumping all over the place. Close your eyes, Elena said. Don't think about tonight. Don't think about the audience. Just play for me like you did that first night. Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He thought about his father, about those long drives to piano lessons, about the pride in Roberto's eyes at his Juilliard graduation recital. He began the Mozart again, and this time the music flowed naturally. His nerves settled as his fingers found their way across the keys. By the time he finished, he was feeling more like himself again. Better? Elena asked. Better, Marcus admitted. Throughout the day, people came and went from the art center, preparing for the evening. Marcus tried to stay calm by practicing familiar pieces and doing breathing exercises that Dr. Kim had taught him. At 4 o'clock, Dr. Kim arrived to check on him. How are the hands? She asked. Marcus showed her his fingers. A little stiff, but okay. And the nerves? Terrible, Marcus said with a weak smile. Dr. Kim laughed. Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried. Nerves mean you care about doing well. She listened to him play through his program one more time, offering small suggestions and encouragement. Marcus, she said when he finished, I want you to remember something tonight. You're not performing for the critics or the donors or even for Elena. You're performing for the music itself. Trust the music and it will carry you through. At 6 o'clock, Marcus went home to shower and change into his concert clothes. Elena had helped him buy a black suit and white shirt. When he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. For the first time in 15 years, he looked like a professional musician again. Marcus arrived back at the Arts Center at 7 o'clock. The concert would start at 8 and people were already gathering in the lobby. Through the windows, he could see well-dressed audience members arriving despite the rain. Elena found him backstage, pacing nervously in the small dressing room. The hall is filling up, she reported. I've never seen so many people here for a classical music concert. That just makes me more nervous, Marcus said. Marcus, look at me, Elena said, taking his hands. You are ready for this. You have worked harder in the past 6 weeks than most people work in 6 months. You have earned your place on that stage. Marcus nodded, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Do you want to peek at the audience? Elena asked. Marcus shook, his head quickly. No, if I see all those people, I'll run away. At 7:45, Elena gave Marcus a final pep talk. Remember, this is your story, she said. This is your chance to show the world who you really are. Not the janitor, not the man who gave up his dreams, but the musician who was always meant to be on stage. At 8 o'clock, Elena walked onto the stage to introduce the concert. The hall was completely full. Every seat was taken and people were standing in the back. Good evening, Elena said into the microphone. Welcome to a very special concert. Tonight you will hear the story of dreams deferred and dreams reclaimed. You will meet a man who gave up everything for his family and who has found his way back to the music that was always in his heart. She told the audience about Marcus's background, his sacrifice, and his return to music. As she spoke, Marcus stood in the wings, listening and trying to calm his racing heart. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena concluded, please welcome Marcus Rivera. The audience applauded as Marcus walked onto the stage. The bright lights made it hard to see the crowd, which was probably for the best. He sat down at the piano and adjusted the bench. For a moment, Marcus just sat there, his hands resting on his knees. The hall was completely quiet. He could hear his own heartbeat. Then he placed his hands on the keys and began to play. The opening piece was a Bach prelude, simple and elegant. Marcus had chosen it because it would help him settle into the performance. As he played the familiar notes, he felt his nerves beginning to calm down. The audience was completely attentive. Marcus could feel their concentration, their willingness to listen and be moved by the music. It reminded him of why he had fallen in love with performing in the first place. The Bach piece ended to warm applause. Marcus stood up, bowed, and sat back down for the second piece. The Chopin piece was more emotional and personal. As Marcus played, he thought about his father, about the years of struggle, about Elena's faith in him. The music became a way of telling his story without words. By the time he reached the final piece, Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, Marcus was completely absorbed in the performance. His nervousness had been replaced by the joy of making music for people who wanted to hear it. The Rachmaninoff was powerful and dramatic. Marcus's hands flew across the keys with confidence and passion. This was the piece that had made him famous at Juilliard, and tonight it reminded everyone why he had been considered so promising. As the final notes rang out through the hall, the audience erupted in applause. People jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering. Marcus stood up and bowed, amazed by the response. The applause went on for 5 minutes. Marcus bowed again and again, looking out at the sea of smiling faces. In the wings, he could see Elena wiping tears from her eyes. For an encore, Marcus played the Mozart piece that had started everything. The same piece Elena had heard him play, that first night when she discovered his secret. As he played, Marcus thought about how much had changed since that evening. How a moment of weakness had become a moment of strength. When the concert finally ended, the audience gave Marcus another standing ovation. As people filed out of the hall, Marcus could hear them talking excitedly about what they had just heard. Incredible talent. Where has he been hiding? Best concert I've heard in years. We have to support this arts center. Elena rushed onto the stage and hugged Marcus tightly. You did it, she whispered. You were magnificent. Marcus felt overwhelmed with emotion. I can't believe it's over. I can't believe I actually did it. Not only did you do it, Elena said. You were brilliant. I've already had 3 donors tell me they want to make major contributions to the Arts Center. During the reception after the concert, Marcus was surrounded by well-wishers and new fans. People wanted to shake his hand, to hear more of his story, to tell him how much his music had moved them. Dr. Kim approached him with a huge smile. Marcus, that was professional-level playing. You should be very proud. I couldn't have done it without your help, Marcus said. I just helped you remember what was already there, Dr. Kim replied. Later that evening, after the last guests had left and the building was quiet again, Marcus and Elena sat together on the stage where it all had happened. I keep expecting to wake up and find out this was all a dream, Marcus said, looking out at the empty concert hall. It wasn't a dream, Elena said. It was real. You were real up there tonight. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, I felt my father with me tonight. During the Rachmaninoff, I could almost hear him cheering from the audience. I think he was there, Elena said softly. You know what the strangest part is? Marcus asked. For 15 years I thought I had failed him. I thought giving up music meant I had wasted all his sacrifices. But tonight I realized something different. What's that? Maybe the music was never really gone, Marcus said. Maybe it was just waiting for the right moment to come back. 3 months after the concert, the Metropolitan Arts Center was a completely different place. The halls that had once felt empty and desperate now buzzed with activity and hope. The successful benefit concert had not only raised enough money to keep the center open, but had also attracted new donors and supporters from across the region. Marcus Rivera was no longer the invisible night janitor. He had become the heart and soul of the Arts Center's music program. His official title was Artist in Residence, but everyone simply called him Maestro Marcus. Every morning, Marcus arrived at the Arts Center not with a cleaning cart, but with sheet music and a coffee that Elena had learned to make just the way he liked it. His office was a small room next to the main concert hall with a piano, a desk covered in music scores, and photos of his family on the walls. The Roberto Rivera Memorial Music Program had launched 2 months earlier with 30 children from low-income families. Marcus taught them piano lessons every Saturday morning, just as he had once learned as a child. Watching these young faces light up when they played their first songs reminded Marcus every day why music mattered. Remember, he would tell his students, music is not about being perfect. Music is about sharing what's in your heart. Elena often stopped by to watch the lessons. She loved seeing Marcus with the children, patient and encouraging, helping them discover their own musical voices. It was clear that teaching brought him as much joy as performing. The Arts Center's concert series had become the most popular cultural event in the city. Marcus performed regularly, sometimes as a soloist and sometimes with visiting musicians. Word of his talent had spread, and music agents from larger cities had started calling, offering him opportunities to perform in bigger venues. But Marcus wasn't interested in leaving. He had found his purpose here, in this community, in this building where his life had been transformed. One evening in late spring, Elena was working late in her office when she heard piano music coming from the concert hall. This had become a common sound, as Marcus often stayed after hours to practice or simply to play for the joy of it. Elena walked to the concert hall and found Marcus at the piano, but he wasn't alone. Dr. Kim was there, along with several other local musicians. They were playing together, laughing and talking between pieces, making music for no other reason than the pure pleasure of it. This is what music is supposed to be, Elena thought to herself. Not just performance, but community. Not just art, but life. As she watched, Elena reflected on how much had changed since that desperate board meeting 6 months earlier. The Arts Center was thriving. Marcus had found his way back to music, and Elena had discovered something she hadn't expected. Over the months of working closely with Marcus, watching him rediscover his passion and talent, Elena had found herself falling in love. Not just with his music, but with the man himself. His kindness, his dedication to his family, his quiet strength, and his gentle way of seeing the world. Elena had not planned for this. She had been focused on saving the Art Center, not on finding romance. But love, like music, had a way of appearing when it was least expected and most needed. She had not said anything to Marcus about her feelings. Their professional relationship was too important, and she didn't want to complicate the good work they were doing together. But sometimes she caught him looking at her with an expression that made her wonder if he might be feeling something similar. The informal concert in the hall ended, and the musicians began packing up their instruments. Elena started to leave, not wanting to interrupt, but Marcus saw her and called out, "Elena, come join us. We were just talking about the summer concert series." Elena walked down to the stage where the group was discussing plans for outdoor concerts in the city park. Marcus's face was animated and happy as he talked about music programming and community outreach. "We could do family concerts," Marcus was saying. "Something where parents and children could enjoy music together, maybe even sing-alongs." "That's a wonderful idea," Dr. Kim said. "Music should bring families together." As the others left, Elena and Marcus found themselves alone in the concert hall, as they had so many times before. But tonight felt different, somehow. The air was charged with unspoken possibilities. "Elena," Marcus said, "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" Marcus sat down on the piano bench and gestured for Elena to sit beside him. "Do you remember that first night, when you found me playing here? You said something that I've never forgotten." Elena smiled. "I said a lot of things that night." "Which one?" "You said that if someone could play Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21 perfectly, you would marry them on the spot." Elena felt her cheeks turn red. "That was a joke, Marcus. I was frustrated and exhausted and not thinking clearly." "I know it was a joke," Marcus said, "but it got me thinking. What did you mean by perfectly?" Elena looked confused. "I don't understand." Marcus turned on the piano bench to face her directly. "I mean, is perfect about hitting every note correctly? Or is perfect about something else?" "Something else, I suppose," Elena said slowly. "Perfect would be about feeling, about meaning, about touching people's hearts." Marcus nodded. "That's what I thought you meant, because technically perfect playing is just mechanics. But musically perfect playing is about connecting with something deeper." "Where are you going with this?" Elena asked, though her heart was starting to beat faster. Marcus took her hands in his. His hands were no longer rough and calloused from manual labor. Months of playing piano had made them smooth and graceful again. "Elena, you saved my life," Marcus said. "You gave me back everything I thought I had lost forever. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You took a crazy risk on a broken-down janitor, and you changed everything." Elena felt tears starting in her eyes. "Marcus, I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago," Marcus continued. "I'm not that scared, defeated man who was hiding from his dreams. You helped me become who I was always meant to be." "We helped each other," Elena said softly. "Yes, we did," Marcus agreed. "We saved the art center together, we built something beautiful together, and somewhere along the way I fell in love with you." Elena's breath caught in her throat. The words she had been hoping to hear but had been afraid to hope for. "I love you too," she whispered. Marcus smiled, the most beautiful smile Elena had ever seen. "In that case," he said, "I have a question for you." Marcus stood up and walked to the piano. He sat down and placed his hands on the keys. "Elena Marchetti," he said, "I would like to play Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21 for you, not perfectly in the technical sense, but perfectly in the way that matters. With all my heart, with all my love, with all my gratitude for what you've given me." Marcus began to play, and Elena realized that this was the same piece she had heard that first night, but it was completely different. 6 months ago, it had been beautiful but sad, played by a man who had given up hope. Tonight it was joyful and triumphant, played by a man who had found his way home. As the music filled the concert hall, Elena understood that this was Marcus's proposal, not with words or a ring, but with music. The language they both understood best. When the last notes faded away, Marcus looked at Elena with love and hope in his eyes. "Was that perfect enough?" he asked. Elena laughed through her tears. It was more than perfect. It was everything. Marcus stood up and took Elena in his arms. "So what do you say? Will you marry this pianist who used to be a janitor?" "Only if you'll marry this arts director who used to have no idea what she was looking for," Elena replied. They kissed on the stage where their story had begun, surrounded by the empty seats that had witnessed Marcus's transformation from invisible cleaner to celebrated musician. 1 year later, Elena and Marcus were married in the same concert hall where they had fallen in love. Marcus's mother and sister were there, proud and happy to see him not only successful but deeply loved. Dr. Kim played piano for the ceremony. The children from the Roberto Rivera Memorial Music Program sang. After the wedding, as guests enjoyed the reception in the lobby, Elena and Marcus snuck away to sit quietly on the stage. "Any regrets?" Elena asked, leaning against her new husband's shoulder. "Only one," Marcus said. "What's that?" Marcus smiled. "I wish my father could have been here to see this. To see that his dream for me came true, just not in the way any of us expected." Elena took Marcus's hand. "I think he was here. I think he's been here all along, guiding us to each other." As they sat together in the peaceful concert hall, surrounded by the instruments and music that had brought them together, Elena and Marcus knew that their story was both an ending and a beginning. The Arts Center was thriving. Marcus had found not only his music but his life partner. Elena had saved not only her beloved institution, but had discovered love in the most unexpected place. And sometimes, late at night when the building was quiet and still, staff members swore they could hear the ghost of an old construction worker, humming with pride, knowing that his son had finally found his way to the life he was meant to live. The janitor and the director had become the musician and his wife. The desperate joke about marriage had become a beautiful reality. And the Arts Center that had almost died had been reborn as a place where dreams really could come true.